where we bring you news, events, and stories from across the world. Here we ensure that the real on-time news are packaged for the viewing pleasure of the people. And of course, I'm not going to be doing all this alone today. I have my co-host, Anita Obari. Anita, thank you so much. Now,
Thank you
let's look at
too.
our headlines for today. Coming from Niger, U.S. Embassy to depart from Niger as political unrest escalates. On Nairobi, U.S. wants Kenya to lead force in Haiti with police. On coal, Russia caution against military intervention in Niger.
And an LGBTQ gay doctor to leave state over discriminatory legislation. From South Korea, attendees at World Scouts Jamboree gets treatment. And an Mexico body floats in Barrier, Texas installed in Rio Grande.
This and many more stories we will be discussing today when we return from the short break. Don't go nowhere. Stay with us. Wednesday as the violence from the attempted military coup escalated. Given ongoing developments in Niger and out of an abundance of caution, the Department of State is ordering a temporary departure of non-emergency U.S. government personnel and eligible family members from the U.S. Embassy in Niamey, the State Department said in a statement. Nigerian security forces prepared to disperse through junta demonstrators gathers or still show more. The embassy will return open for limited emergency service to U.S. citizens, the State Department said. The announcement comes as high-ranking officials at the U.S. Department of State is trying to wrest Niger or democratic order in Niger. U.S. alliance on counter-terrorism, there may be a narrow opportunity to reverse an attempt coup in the West African Union, according to one of the senior U.S. officials.
The U.S. government was considering Kenya to lead a multinational force in Haiti. It was also openly warning Kenyan police officers against violent abuses. Now 1,000 of those officers might head to Haiti to take on gang warfare. It is challenge in turn for a police force long accused by the rights watchdogs of killings and tortures, including gunning down civilians during Kenya's COVID-19 curfew. One local group confirmed that officers fatally shot more than 30 people in July, all of them in Kenya's protest neighborhoods during opposition-called protests over the rising cost of living. We are saddened by the loss of life and concerned by high levels of violence, including the use of live rounds during those protests, the U.S. said in a joint statement with 11 other nations in mid-July.
The Russian Federation has advised the Economic Community of West African States (ECOWAS) against military intervention in the Niger Republic in response to the coup. The ECOWAS on Sunday resolved to use all measures necessary to restore constitutional order in Niger, including the use of force. Its demands are not met in the week's time. Responding in a joint statement on Monday, Mali and Burkina Faso's West African countries suspended the ECOWAS on account of military coup. backed the action of the Nigerian military. The country is warned against the further intervention that would jeopardize the spirit of Pan-Africanism and threaten the withdrawal from the regional bloc. The country has also said many military intervention against Niger could force them to also adopt self-defense measures in support of the brotherly armed forces and the people of Niger.
One of Lusania's few doctors specializing in pediatric heart conditions is leaving the state after the legislature passed a variety of bills aimed at restricting rights for LGBTQ people. Dr. J. Clay Mahon works at Osna Hospital for Children in New Orleans as the medical director of the hospital's pediatric heart transplant, heart failure, and ventricular assist device programs. He is just one of 3 doctors in the state with that specialization, he told WDSU, an NBC affiliate in New Orleans. Clay Mahon, who is gay, told WDSU that he and his husband had planned to retire in New Orleans, but he now feels like the anti-LGBTQ legislation passed by the legislature has made the state a hostile place for families like his.
At least 108 people were treated for heat-related illness at the World Sport Jamboree being held in South Korea, which is having one of its hottest summer in years. Most of them has recovered, but all that leads to remain in treatment at an on-site hospital, as the Thursday morning said Choi Chang-chung, Secretary General of the Jamboree Organizing Committee. The committee, which planned to proceed with the event while adding dozens of many more medical staff to prepare for further emergency, did not confirm the age and other personal details of those who were injured. Wednesday night operating ceremony of the Jamboree, which brought more than 40,000 squad, mostly teen, to the campsite, built an island reclaimed from the sea in the southeast town of Buna. The temperature there reaches 35 degrees Celsius on Wednesday.
The Mexican government reported for the first time Wednesday that a body was spotted along the floating barrier that Texas Governor Greg Abbott installed recently in the Rio Grande across from Eagle Pass, Texas. Mexico's Foreign Relations Department said authorities were trying to recover the body and did not know the person's nationality or the cause of death. Many had warned about the danger of the barrier because it is designed to make it more difficult for migrants to climb over or swim under it. The department said Mexico had warned about the risks posed by the bright orange wrecking ball-sized buoys on the Rio Grande. It also claimed the barrier violates treaties regarding the use of the river and violates Mexico's sovereignty. We made clear our concerns about the impact of migrant safety and human rights that these state policies would have, the department said in a statement.
Sudan's warnings party have committed extensive war crimes in the ongoing conflict, including deliberate killings of civilians and sexual assault, a leading rights group said Thursday. The East African country plunged into chaos in mid-April when months-long tension between the military and a powerful paramilitary group, the Rapid Support Forces, exploded into open fighting in the capital of Khartoum and elsewhere in the country. Amnesty International 56-page reports that civilians were killed and wounded in targeted attacks. The group also reports women being raped, with some held in conditions amounting to sexual slavery, mostly in the capital Khartoum and the western region of Darfur. Sexual violence has been a defining element of its conflict since the beginning, Donatella Ravra, co-author of the report, said. The Associated Press, civilians really have no good option. It's difficult for them to leave. It's incredibly dangerous for them to stay. Almost all rape cases were bound on the RSF and its alliance, Arab Emirates. The report said the RSF adopted 24 women and girls as young as 12 and held them for several days, during which they were raped by several RSF members.
Singapore hung the third prisoner in 2 weeks on Thursday for drug trafficking, despite calls for the city-state to halt capital punishment for drug-related crimes. The Central Narcotics Bureau said Mohammed Salah Abdul Latif, a 39-year-old Singaporean, was executed at Singapore's Changi prison after being accorded due process under the law. He was sentenced to death for trafficking 54 grams of heroin, an amount sufficient to feed the addiction of about 640 abusers for a week, it said in a statement. Transformative Justice Collective, an anti-death penalty advocate in Singapore, said Sheila, an ethnic Malay who worked as a delivery driver before his arrest in 2016. He was sentenced in 2019, but his appeal was dismissed last year. The group says Sheila had maintained in his trial that he believed he was delivering contraband cigarettes for a friend to whom he owed money, and he didn't verify the contents of the bag as he trusted his friend.
A police raid in a low-income neighborhood of Rio de Janeiro says of a gun battle that killed 9 people and wounded 2 officers Wednesday, making the latest incident in a wave of lethal policing in Brazil. In a statement, Rio police says suspected criminals in a Val Cruzeiro first salad shot first wounded the officers and prompted police to return fire. 9 people hit by the bullets were taken to the state's hospital where they were declared dead. According to the statement, which said intelligence work had uncovered a meeting in Villa Cruzeiro among crimes leaders who control the region. Villa Cruzeiro has been the site of bloodshed during police operations in the past. A firefight resulted in more than 20 dead in May 2022, just months after another raid saw 8 people killed. The Rio de Janeiro state government's strategy for tackling violence and organized crimes has come under criticism in a recent year, particularly given there is a little insight into official choice to dispense lethal force.
A train smashed into a small commuter bus at the Great Crossing, killing 7 people and injuring 17 early Wednesday, authorities in central Mexico said. Alejandro Vasquez Melado, head of civil defense for the township of El Marcos, said several of the 17 injured were in critical condition. Querétaro State Interior Secretary Guadalupe Munguia later said the death toll had risen to 7. The town is in Querétaro State, north of Mexico City. Photos of the scene show the crumpled wreckage of the bus tossed to one side of the tracks. The vehicle was apparently dragged about 50 yards along the tracks. Such accidents are frequent at railroads crossing in Mexico that lack signals or barriers.
Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva said Wednesday that he supports more countries joining the BRICS group of large developing nations, which currently include Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. The group will hold a summit in Johannesburg from August 22nd to 24th. The meeting will have in hand is a list of others desiring to join their groups. Possibly in a meeting we can already consensually decide which new country can join BRICS. Lula told international journalists in a capital, Brasilia, "I am of the opinion that many countries want to enter if they are in compliance with the rules we are establishing. We will accept the country's entrance." Lucia's comments came hours after the Lula reports that Brazil has resisted expanding the group's membership. A quoted unidentified Brazilian diplomat has a voice in concern that adding more nations could lessen the influence of the existing members.
Greek authorities rescued 40 migrants from a sinking dinghy in the Aegean Sea on Wednesday and charged two of them with causing a shipwreck and endangering lives for allegedly scuttling the flimsy vessel as a Coast Guard boat approached. A Coast Guard statement said all 40 people were in good health after being picked up by the inflatable dinghy off the eastern Greek island of Lesbos. Lesbos is close to the Turkish mainland and a major entry point for people from the Middle East and Africa seeking a better life in the European Union, who pay smuggling gangs for a berth on a small boat. The statement said one of the people on the boat slashed its rubber sides with a sharp implement, endangering the passengers as a Coast Guard patrol boat approached, while the other threw the small outboard engine into the sea.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his wife Sophia are separating after 18 years of marriage. The two said in a statement posted on Instagram that they have made the decision after many meaningful and difficult conversations. A statement from the Prime Minister's office said they both have signed a legal separation agreement. Trudeau's the 51-year-old The 51-year-old son of one of the Canada's most famous politicians was sworn into office in 2015. Sophia Trudeau is a former model and a TV host. The couples were married in 2005. Together, they brought start to get power to the Prime Minister's office and appeared in a page of Vago magazine. They have three children, 15-year-old Xavier, 14-year-old Ella Grace, and 9-year-old Hadarin. As also, we remain a close family with deep love and respect for each other and for everything we have built and will continue to build, the two sides on Instagram.
A Florida mother who was arrested 4 years after her child was found dead in an inlet in 2018 pleaded guilty or sentenced to 14 years in prison Wednesday, the prosecutor's office said. Aya Singh, 30, was sentenced after she pleaded guilty to aggravated manslaughter of a child and abuse of a dead body, the state's attorney's office for the 15th Judicial Circuit said. Singh was arrested in December, more than 4 years after the newborn, who was called Baby June by investigators, was found in Boynton Beach Inlet in Palm Beach County on June 1, 2018. Singh told investigators that she did not know she was pregnant until she gave birth on May 30, 2018, and that when the baby went into the inlet, she was already deceased, a police detective said then.
The U.S. federal jury has sentenced the attacker who killed 11 people at a synagogue in Petersburg in October 2018 to the death penalty. The ruling needed an anonymous vote from the 12 members jury for the sentence to be imposed. Prosecutors has asked the jury to vote for the death penalty. The same jury found the man guilty of all 63 charges stemming from the attack on the Tree of Life synagogue. It was worst anti-Semitic attack in American history. The verdict was delivered to U.S. District Court Judge Robert Colville on Wednesday. Mr. Colville is now expected to impose the jury's ruling. The jury deliberated for 10 hours over 2 days. A decision was reached on the second day of the deliberations. Robert Boa killed 11 worshippers in an attack ranging in age from 54 to 97, others were injured, including 5 police officers who rushed to the scene.
Pope Francis has held a private meeting with victims of clerical sexual abuse during a 5-day visit to Portugal. In a statement, the Vatican said the gathering had been held on Wednesday in an atmosphere of intense listening. A report this year concluded that at least 4,815 children had been abused in Portugal and that the church had sought systematically to conceal the issue. At an evening service in Lisbon, the Pope said the Church must listen to the anguished cry of the victims. He added that the scandal calls us to a humble and ongoing purification, and that widespread anger over it had contributed to a growing detachment from the practice of the faith. The meeting held at the Holy See's diplomatic mission in Portugal included 13 abuse victims and lasted more than an hour, the Vatican said. Officials of the Portuguese church responsible for the protection of minors were also in attendance.
North Korea has confirmed custody of Travis King in its first response to requests for information on the U.S. soldiers' whereabouts. The UN command has said the 23-year-old private dashed across the border from South Korea on 18 July while on the guide tour. The UN command said it would not give more details about the Pyongyang response at the time. It said it did not want to interfere with the effort to bring him home. However, the reply indicates that Pyongyang could be ready to start regonating. The UN command said policy and the Maîtrise zone had sought information on Pete King using its direct phone line to the North Korea Army in the Joint Security Area. The North Korean had previously acknowledged the request, but this is the first time they have responded, confirming the U.S. soldiers in their custody.
Australia's National Gallery will return 3 9th and 10th century bronze sculptures to Cambodia after they were found to be stolen. It found a decade-long investigations carried out by the two countries to determine the origin of the works. Cambodia's government welcomed the historic move as an important step towards rectifying past injustices. It comes amid a global push to return looted cultural goods. The 3 artworks originally came from the Champa Kingdom that once inhabited Vietnam and parts of Cambodia. The National Gallery of Australia says it purchased the sculptures in 2011 for $2.3 million Asian dollar from British artifacts smuggler Douglas Latchford, who died in 2020. Mr. Latchford has been implicated in the illegal trade of antiquities since 2016, according to the NGA, with charges laid against him in 2019 relating to the alleged trafficking of stolen and looted Cambodian artifacts.
Human remains have been found in a search for the victims of the catastrophic military helicopter crash off Australia's northeast coast. 4 Syrian soldiers were presumed dead after the MH-90 Taphan chopper dashed into a sea during a multinational military drill on Friday. A major search operation has since located debris and now the cockpit. Australian authorities are investigating the incident as criticisms over the use of the aircraft grows. The helicopters went down near the Whitsunday Island during the exercise Talisman Debris, a massive training operation which every 2 years gathered 30,000 military personnel from Australia, the United States, and the several other nations. Authorities immediately launched a search for the missing soldiers on board. Captain Daniel Loyne, late Maxwell Nugan, urgently Officer Class 2 Joseph Lacock, and Paul Alexander Knack, all from the 6th Aviation Regiment. But on Monday, the defense minister said there was no longer any hope of recovering them alive after the search party located debris consistent with the catastrophic incident.
An armed man who was shot by a Memphis police officer Monday after he earlier tried unsuccessfully to enter a Hebrew school has been criminally charged in the case, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation said. Joe Alejandro Bowman, 33, remained hospitalized Wednesday following the shooting Monday afternoon, the bureau known as the TBI said in a statement. He is charged with 1 count each of carrying weapons on school property, reckless endangerment, second-degree murder, possessing a firearm during the commission or attempt to commit a dangerous felony, and assault against a first responder, it said. Memphis police investigated the shooting of an armed man who tried to enter a school building on Monday, July 31st, 2023. Memphis police investigate the shooting of an armed man who tried to enter a school building in Memphis. A motive has not been disclosed by the TBI, who is leading the investigation into what occurred at Magdalene Hebrew Academy, as well as a shooting involving police.
During a trip to the White House in June, former President Barack Obama made it clear to his former running mates that he was committed to doing whatever it takes to support his re-election. 3 source families with the meeting confirmed to reporters. As part of the visit that included a private lunch, the two presidents discussed how much was at stake in 2024, especially because of the continued strength of former President Donald Trump's base, 2 of the sources said. The Washington Post was first to report Wednesday that Obama has expressed concern during the private lunch about Trump's strength, including his base. Conservative media said friendly to Trump and a political polarized electorate, source families familiar with the meeting declined to offer additional details. On strategy will be based on the driving impact. We place a huge emphasis on finding creative ways to reach new audience, especially tools that can be directly tied to the voters' mobilization on volunteer activism. We are deliberate in picking our moment because our object is to move the needle. We go on a short break to return after. Do stay with us. Welcome back. This is International Tit Bits on Atlantic Television Network. And now to the rest of our stories. An Arizona county has decided not to hand count its ballot in the next year's elections after discovering that it will cost more than $1 million and leave it inaccurate results. The All-Republicans Board of Supervisors on Marvel's County votes 3-2 against ongoing ballot counting machine in favor of hand counting in 2024 after months of debate question on the legality and the 3 days last run. I'm willing to have further conversation about this, but the first thing that we have to do in Marvis County is good conscience to be balanced the budget. You can talk about any other spending when you have an $18 to $20 million defeat, said Supervisor Trenny Lagamfasta, a Republican, before voting against a proposal to hand count all the ballots in 2024 that's responsible.
The typhoon that damaged homes and knocked out power on Okinawa and other Japanese islands this week was slowly moving west Thursday, but its forecast is to make a U-turn and dump even more rain on the archipelago. Typhoon Karnum now is in the waters between China and Japan's southwestern islands. It's expected to slow to nearly stationary movement before a weakening high-pressure system nearby allows it to turn east Friday, the Japan Meteorological Agency said. That forecast would spare China, where rain from an earlier typhoon caused deadly flooding and damage this week around the capital, Beijing. The storm has injured 41 people, 3 of them seriously, according to the Okinawa Prefecture government. A 90-year-old man was found under a collapsed garage in Ojimi village, and his death is being investigated as possibly caused by the typhoon's high winds.
A parliamentary vote to select Thailand's new prime minister expected on Friday was delayed again after a court put over decision in a case involving the Progressive Party that won May's election, adding the growth uncertainty about when a new government can take office. The Constitutional Court on Thursday said it needs more time to deliberate on whenever to accept a petition from the state ombudsman on whether it was constitutional for Parliament to move to forward party leader Peter Limjamerat, the surprise election winner from being nominated as a prime minister candidate to the second time. A Progress moved forward party finished in the first place in the May election and assembled as a party coalition with 312 seats in a 500 members lower house. But Parliament has struggled to confirm a new prime minister, which required a majority vote together with a conservative 255 members appointed Senate. Peter initiated bid last month fall short by more than 50 votes, largely because only 13 senators backed him. He was barred from the second to the following week after Parliament voted that he could not submit his name again. Joining us in a conversation now is Barrister Livingstone. You're welcome, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, good afternoon. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be with you people this afternoon.
All right, let's go straight to our story for today. China's internet watchdog has laid out regulations to curb the amount of time children spend on their smartphones in the latest bout of such as Tagant and ByteDance Dance, which runs social media platform and online games. The Cyberspace Administration of China on Wednesday published the draft guideline on its site, setting the minor could
You
not
break
be allowed
after
to
this
use
breaking.
most internet service on mobile device from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. and that children between the age of 16 and 18
Immaculate, that is her name.
could only be able to use the internet for 2 hours a day. Children between the age of 8 and 15 would be allowed only an hour a day, while those under 8 would only be allowed 40 minutes. Only certain services such as app or platform are deemed suitable to the physical and mental development of minors will be exempted. The CAC did not specify which internet service could be allowed exemptions. Now, Barrister Livingstone, this is we have a smartphone has been one of the issues that we are having in this generation because it seems it's causing a lot of damage to children's brain. The proposed law would be used, I mean, would see children being only allowed to use their phones from the maximum of 2 hours a day. Now, China has come up with this implementation of allowing, not allowing children to use phone more than 4 hours a day, and this looks like a very good development that should be brought back, that should be implemented all over the world, not just in China. What do you have to say about this? How would this affect the app owners, and how would this also affect the children, being that they are using this mostly to do their school assignments and all that research? All right, we have, like I said, phone is good, smartphone is good, but at the same time it's causing a lot of harm, because why you see children do a lot of what they do today, not that they learned it from their parents, is because of what they see online. Some of them will even go ahead to say we are doing assignment, but if you go look at their phone, what you will see, I mean, your mouth might not be able to speak. And of course, China are coming up with this beautiful development to curb this, allowing children to use phone just for a period of time. In November 2019, the country imposed a curfew on social media again from minor. They were also restricted to 90 minutes of gaming on weekdays and 3 hours to weekdays and holiday. You know, see how the specification now. Weekdays, you have to use it for 3 hours, and then holidays is just for 9 hours. So don't you think that this is a very good development, as to say?
Very good development. I don't know, because if you look at China, China has so much media regulations. So much media regulations that people are not allowed to use the media. In fact, like we have that liberty here in Nigeria where you can just wake up and post anything against any government. You can't do that in China. There's so much regulations. Now, I noticed something you read while you were narrating the story. You talked about the fact that some media platforms would apps owners who create these apps, games, and all of that for children. China trying to limit the usage of those specific apps. Not like they are trying to go overboard as to the usage of mobile phones by children or teenagers. So if we look at it in that light, then we'll have to, first question should be, why are they bothered about just those two apps? Is it that those apps are damaging to the children? Is it that those apps have some issues with them that is not comfortable with the government of China? What exactly is the problem with this act? Because they do not seem to go overboard with their internet restrictions.
Exactly what they are saying. I know that they have a lot of stop restriction in 2019, but we are coming back to restrict this particular app. We have realized that children are more interested in these games than any other thing. So that's why I'm saying I think it's a good development that anytime, because you know some countries will be like, some persons will be like, okay, I've already talked about this, so even if this comes up, they should still operate on that formal regulations. But that's to say that they are monitoring everything that they are doing. So that's what I'm talking about.
Like I said, if the intention is for the betterment of the children, they are helpful these organizations from thriving in their businesses, then I think there is an ulterior motive, which is actually what we have here. And then there will definitely be a question mark as to why is China doing this?
Let's get it briefly. Barrister Livingstone, what do you have to say about this new improvement in China for children not to use phone for quite a long time?
Politics that the government considered to be anti-social and not actually, educative for the children. And so, if the government have come up with such a very, important policy to curtail and to contain, the irregularities that have over time been occasioned as a result of the effects, should I say, consistent and continual use of phone for a very sentinel long period of time. And so I think it's part of the government policy. And of course, every government institutions and agencies have the right under the law. And so the law, that is more prevalent, in the Chinese government, of course, they're allowed. Children are at the age, depending on the age where they are. So using long phones for a long period of time, of course, could have a lot of effect. So they have seen that it is very expedient and imperative for there to be a policy or a law or regulation that will regulate it. And I think it is good for them because medically speaking, psychologically speaking, and of course, that what they have done, for me, they are not out of place. But however, there must be a very coordinated, laws that will be able to, completely guide them effectively. You understand? So at the end of the day, if the government feels that this one first is to ensure that children are properly guided, of course, and should ensure that they psychologically they are protected, it's okay for me. That
now, if you look at this restriction, if you look at this restriction, there are just two platforms that are restricted, not internet in its entirety, just two gaming platforms, apps that are behind this.
No, there is not, without sense of humility and sincerity of purpose. Is it when policies are designed, the government design policies in such a way that it's either the policy is provided that policy is not anti-people. If the policy is not anti-people, if the policy is not such that it's targeted to selected few, I think it's a welcome policy. So it's not that by being targeted with a very segregated set of but of course, the government is doing that so as to ensure that at the end of the day, they do not, begin to, bring up children that at the end of the day will not impact the society